Hello everyone, I'm Patricia and this is Get Conscious Now. Thanks so much for tuning in here today. This show, if you haven't seen us before, is really about raising consciousness in a world that's mostly unconscious. We are about helping people understand that there's so much more to this human experience than meets the eye. And our mission is to explore the true nature of our physical reality and its practical implications for living a life that is mindful and happy. We have a studio audience here today, and I have to say this is the greatest audience we've had in number, and it's crediting to. And I know you're all very excited about hearing from our special guest today, but I'm not going to tell you who that is yet, the audience. This show is about conscious transformation. And transformation is a very timely topic today, especially for humanity and what's going on in the world. So we have a guest that has had a lot of expertise in transformation, personal transformation, and she has spent 4 decades refining her expertise in this topic. But before you hear from her, I'd like to introduce my wonderful co-host, Stu Zimmerman, who always brings his loving vibe to the show and his wit and humor as well. So Stu, take it away.
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
As always, just an absolute pleasure to be here. And welcome to our show. If you're new to it, welcome anyway. And the name Get Conscious Now is a slight misnomer, or just a little tease, because the real truth is there's nothing outside of us to get. You're watching this show for a reason. I'm not going to tell you what that reason is, but you know that reason. And intuitively, isn't it because you know there's something more that you want to experience in life? Something that involves more love, more joy, more freedom, perhaps more wealth or more physical health. There's something that you want to grow into and experience and explore. That's what we all have in common. That's what we're here for, and that's what Get Conscious Now is really about, is having that level of awareness so we can just absolutely enjoy this existence that we have, even if it's for a limited time only. If you've missed any of our programs, we have now about 30 of them or so in our library at YouTube, or come to our website at getconsciousnow.com, where we have people like Deepak Chopra, Reverend Michael Beckwith, Julia Loggins, and a handful of other people who not only share their wisdom, their lightheartedness, but also it's a vibrational presence that you may pick up on, and it's something that can make a difference in your life. So feel free to look at any of those programs that we have. And before we get to the rest of this program, check in with a couple of our supporters here who have a message or two for us, and then we'll be back for our interview.
If you are passionate about your message, if you want your book to be the best it can be, and if you want someone to do it for you with your collaboration every step of the way, then Ellen Reed is the one for you. Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it. Now, transformation is happening all the time in our lives, although sometimes it's very subtle and we may not be aware of it, but we are continually changing. And of course, transformation is also what we know as death, and the death of the physical body. We know about physical death. But there's transformation that's going on today that is really dying old identities, metaphorical deaths of our identities that don't serve us. And if you're on the spiritual path, you know what I'm talking about, because there are aspects of us that we just cannot move forward with. So I call these metaphorical deaths. And our guest today is a renowned spiritual teacher and expert in the field of personal transformation. She is Dr. Barbara DeAngelis, who is a renowned author, speaker, and media personality. And I just want to share a little bit about her before you actually meet her. She's earned a legendary status of one of the first people who helped popularize the self-help movement in the 1980s. And actually, as Barbara and I and Stu were having our call the other day, I said, I remember seeing you in Los Angeles many times when you were speaking in the 80s. And your focus then was on relationship. And I remember that I was there with a man who actually ended up being my husband. So it was really interesting that we learned a lot that day. I guess I learned enough to actually tie the knot. So she has also written 14 best-selling books that have sold over 10 million copies and been published in 25 languages, including 4 #1 bestsellers. She has starred in her own TV shows on CNN, CBS, PBS, and has been a frequent guest on Oprah, The Today Show, and Good Morning America. So she's here today to share about her brand new project and book called Soul Shifts, a really remarkable book. I highly recommend it. Soul Shifts, transformative wisdom for creating a life of authentic awakening, emotional freedom, and practical spirituality. I love that title. We can all relate to that on some level. So we're really honored to have Barbara DeAngelis with us today, and we're also honored to have her be a resident of our fair city of Santa Barbara. So Barbara, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm honored to be here.
Oh.
And who could imagine that I could be invited to probably the most conscious TV program I've been on all year. And it was 4 minutes from my house.
That's great.
Well, you called us in.
All synchronicities happening. So I'd like to jump right into our conversation by asking you, what is your personal definition of transformation?
We think of transformation as a change from one state to another, or as Stu beautifully said, getting something. I'm here, I need something, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get more success, or I'm going to get more confidence. But all transformation is actually reconnection. It's not really a shift into something we're not. It's a return to something that we are, that we've forgotten, that we've disconnected from. And this is really the first soul shift that I try to share with my readers and my audiences. The idea that I'm missing something. There's something out there. When I came into this planet, I was not in the right line, so I didn't get happiness, or I didn't get enough talent. I must have gone to the bathroom in heaven, and I came back and they were done. You know, there was nothing left. But that's not really true. We all have to be, by definition, created out of the same magical, profound consciousness. There's wholeness there. But we don't experience it. We've disconnected. We've unplugged circuits. Our wires are twisted. We've forgotten who we are. Our identification has shifted to the not real versus the real. So it's shifted to our fear or our limitation or what our parents told us or what our ex-husband told us. And it's forgetfulness. You know, all awakening is just remembrance. This, if you really think about it, even if you don't understand it, if you think about that, you can get really excited. You say, I'm not missing something. I need to remember. And remembering not intellectually, but vibrationally, emotionally, plugging back in, going home. And that's really why the ancients called the path to enlightenment the pathless path. That's what they meant. That you're not anywhere. And I tell my students, all awakening is a shift in identification, identifying to your biggest versus your smallest. So that's my definition of transformation.
Yeah. And I appreciate what you just said too. I call it a journey. We're on a journey without distance to a place we never left. Yeah.
And you've called it being a seeker without a path.
Seeker without a path.
And so to that extent, before we get more into your book and what you're working on now, why don't you share with us how you came to be in this position? Like, where did you get your significant transformations to really get into this whole area of personal awareness?
I was born in 1951. In fact, I'm going to be 65 any second now. And I, from the time I was young, was a seeker and asking what I call the sacred questions, which I know both of you were, many of you watching as well. The sacred questions. Who am I? What am I doing here? What am I supposed to be doing? Why sometimes am I at my highest? And other times I feel disconnected. What's wrong with the fact that I can't feel the truth all the time? Why are people so unkind to each other? Now, I'm talking about asking these questions when I was 6 or 7 years old. So you can imagine that I was not the most happy-go-lucky child. I was, as I said, a seeker who hadn't found a path yet. And there's a lot of young people like that. There's a lot of not just young people. When we are seeking and we don't understand that we're even seeking, we think something's wrong with us. Fortunately for me, I, at the age of 18, saw a poster at the University of Wisconsin, my second week there, and it said, "Learn to meditate." And it had a picture of a beautiful Indian man. It was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And I didn't know what meditation was. There was no Eastern philosophy in the US in 1969. I didn't understand any of it. But I said, that's it. That's the doorway. My path began. And I became a very, very serious spiritual seeker long before I had a career. I actually didn't start doing what I do now until my 30s. I really went deep in first. I knew somehow I was preparing for something, but I didn't know what it was for. I just knew I wanted to be prepared when somebody told me what my assignment was. And, nothing has changed. I've been a seeker first, a student first, a teacher, and a writer, and everything else second.
So you're credited with being, I put it in here, like one of the mothers of the self-help movement in the 80s.
It's true.
It is true. And how has that movement, how do you think that movement has impacted the personal growth movement today? Because personal growth is definitely on people's radar today.
I truly feel one of my greatest achievements is, along with many other people, before anyone understood personal growth meant going to the gym in the 60s and 70s, but bringing out the idea of transformation from the inside out, the idea moving from psychiatry and psychology, which was the only thing to do to work on yourself really in 1964, 5, 6, for most people, was to go into therapy or something like that. So I, along with many other people, kind of came up at that time. And I remember in the early 80s, myself, Deepak Chopra, the late, my beloved Wayne Dyer, still have a hard time saying late, Louise Hay, we would tour all over the country and talk to people about the idea of their own personal relationship to transformation. Now, you just read any blog, it's everywhere. You see commercials with pictures of people meditating and it's for a car, all kinds of things like that. In sports, they're using the mantra for today's game is, but these were not known things. So I was told by a psychic once that I was the horn of the rhinoceros, that the horn goes first. I've always been ahead. And it's beautiful to see that. It's beautiful to see, for instance, there's wonderful young people here. I just met a 13-year-old girl named Sage in the audience, who is a seeker. And she, her father was a seeker and she came in. So it's a different time. I do feel all of us have been preparing everybody for that time. And my mission now is to really let people who have been seeking, learning, growing know that transformation is experiential. It's not intellectual, it's not positive thinking, it's not a change in attitude, it's not a series of revelations that we collect or places we've gone or particular kind of clothing we wear or anything like that. It's a series of inner shifts that are permanent, that rock your world, and that you don't have to announce to other people.
Beautiful.
Right? That's
Beautiful. So are there common mistakes or things that people tend to focus on, what they think is like a detour rather than a superhighway?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Yes. Yes. This is, again, one of the reasons I wrote Soul Shifts, to help people really recalibrate. We're living in a world, and especially our Western society, where mastery is about usually what we get, and that's why I love when you said get conscious now. What we get, what we do, what we acquire, what people see. Our value becomes in what we can measure. And if you can't measure it, many times people don't think it's valuable. Unfortunately, and it's just inevitable, the idea of growing and shifting and changing has had to collide with some of those values. So for instance, somebody can say, I've been to 20 meditation retreats and I met this one and this person and this guru hugged me and this person did this and this one hit me on the head. And these are all wonderful things. But they're not transformation. They're high experiences. They're a temporary experience of a connection. They're not the choice, moment by moment, to live in your highest, to remove the things in the way that disconnect you from the highest. They're not a practice. There's a difference between an experience and a state.
And what you're talking about is a true state of being.
A state.
Moment to moment.
Yes, and I'm not talking about a state you have to go live in India and have. Many of the people in this audience, for instance, are students of mine, some who just met me a few months ago, and yet they've been shifting tremendously using soul shift practices. The great news, as you said, is that there's nothing missing, but learning how to reconnect, seeing how we drift from our highest. We don't actually make a choice. Anyone watching is a conscious person. You know you're a good person. So we don't actually say, today I'm going to be unconscious. We just drift from it. And before we know it, we're miles from our state of center. But it didn't just happen. You can notice when you start drifting. So what I really wanted to do, and I have been doing for years, is help articulate what I call the technology of transformation. It's not a magical thing. You know, everyone's had a soul shift. Perhaps you've been, standing at the ocean in Santa Barbara and seeing the beautiful dolphins, playing. Perhaps you've been holding your newborn child or at the deathbed of someone you love. We have these moments when suddenly we feel greater and bigger than our contractions, our limitations. Those aren't accidental. There's something happening in that moment that creates the opportunity for us to be at our highest. We also all have had, and probably this week all of you have had, our highest moments when we feel one with everything, we're totally clear, we feel we're aligned, we trust the universe, and then we have our other moments when we think, does that make sense? Am I kidding myself? Why are these things happening to me? And then everything in between. My point is, it's not arbitrary where you are. It's not that suddenly one day you're at your highest, another day you're feeling disconnected. Something created it. You can recreate those things that really bring you into your highest self from moment to moment, have regular soul shifts. That's the whole point. But it's something you have to choose and do, and you're not going to just get a certificate because you've had spiritual exposure or experiences. That's not a state.
So this is your 15th book, and
Yes.
I remember reading that you really feel that this is, not that you won't write more, but this is kind of the culmination of all of your work up until now, where you're expressing the wisdom that you've garnered all this time in a book that's truly going to make a difference for people through their soul shifts. Because you talk a little bit about the term soul shift and exactly what you mean by that in a little more detail.
It's, we were talking earlier, and I love that Stu is just intuitively tuning into this idea of nothing to get. In each moment, we can be standing in any parts of our self. Right now, we could all shift into fear. We could shift into worry. We could shift into thinking about what's happening on the planet and thinking, my God, are we all doomed? At least those of us living in Santa Barbara, so no one's going to find us here. We can, oops, the real estate values just went up even more. We can shift into love. We can shift into service. We're making choices all the time. The soul level of who we are, the highest level, the most aligned level, is a level when we shift into that, we're plugged in. We've plugged all of our circuits back in. We're like a lit up Christmas tree as opposed to a little blinking light that's going off and on. And that's what a soul shift is. And in each moment, there's an opportunity to shift out of what we're doing that's disconnecting us to what is connecting us. So, for instance, shifting from, trying to impress people, connect with people, get approval from people, to shifting in each moment to thinking, what can I give? I'm not talking about walking around telling yourself that. I'm saying the vibrational experience in that moment will shift you into hooking into what you have to offer. It's not necessary at that point. What people think won't even matter. So all of my soul shifts are really practical things. Everything we're talking about seems very big. That's why it says practical spirituality.
Right.
And I love when you said you liked the subtitle, because I fought for all of these words,
Practical spirituality is very important today.
It's essential today,
Yes.
because it's not intellectual, it's vibrational. All change has to be vibrational. Otherwise, we have to manage it. And I call that playing emotional whack-a-mole. Those things where the mole comes up like
Right.
in Caddyshack and you have to hit it down, and then it comes up over here. this is how a lot of us manage our lives. We think, for instance, that mastery or enlightenment is control. I'm controlling my thoughts, I'm controlling my moods, I'm controlling my reactions. That's not mastery, that's management. Mastery is when those moods, those reactions aren't happening. They're not happening. They disappear. They aren't necessary because the thing that makes them happen has been healed, has changed. So you're not having to effort. You're not going, I'm going to be an enlightened person today. I'm going to give love to everybody. I'm going to vibe Stu and Patricia. I'm aligned. These are unnecessary things. And all of us have them. I'm not talking about me. Everyone has these moments when they're just hooked in. But why do we disconnect? What gets in the way? It's not arbitrary. And the idea of a transformational map, and I really am a map maker. I think all teachers are map makers. There's the show is a map for people. Mm-hmm. I like to think of myself as just having traveled these roads and have very, very good maps that I can hand somebody and say, here, this will get you there without getting in trouble. Mm-hmm. This will get you there faster. I've tried that, and if you start to see this, don't go that way. It may look good. It's not going to help. And I think I create really good maps.
And aren't our bodies kind of like the guidance systems on some level, that it tells us how connected we are in a given moment, so that if
to some extent, but we're living in such a vibrationally dissonant world that, for instance, if I'm thinking I'm going to do this, or I'm thinking I should make this decision versus that, and I feel my body feels anxious or tense, it's not necessarily because my idea is wrong or it's the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. It could be the environment I'm in right then. It could be that I'm tuning in and picking up how that's going to affect people who aren't feeling very supportive, and I'm already tuning into their dissonance. So it has to be more than just what it feels like. It has to be very simple questions that I offer. What's expanding me? What's mm-hmm. contracting me? What's the highest choice I can make in this moment? Because our egos are really clever, and this is a big, maybe a side topic. The spiritual ego is really clever, and we can think that we're in tune and everything else, and it's kind of the last level of the ego. So it's a little advanced, but it doesn't necessarily mean because we're feeling good and we're tuned in and all that we are.
It really does come to the choices that we make in every moment, right? When we make a choice, we're vibing at whatever that choice is about, right?
Exactly.
And if we can pay attention to that vibration, then it's going to move us, then we're going to feel like we're moving in the right direction. So I think how we feel about the choices that we make are critically important, because when we make a choice and we feel lousy about it, or we feel anxious about it, or whatever, we need to really look at that and maybe choose again.
And I'm talking about, the choices I'm talking about are internal choices. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about external choices. I'm talking about the inner choices. Most people think the choices we make each day are, I'm going to do this versus that. I'll call this person, I won't call this person. The most important, essential choices we're making are invisible to everybody, many times unconscious to us. The choice to indulge versus to let go, the choice to connect versus disconnect, the choice to find evidence against someone versus to have compassion. We're making hundreds of these choices, mm-hmm. probably every hour. Those choices, exactly like you said, are shifting our vibration because we're just shifting matter. We're literally vibrating differently based on those. So to me, the most important thing in this book is what I call the Soul Shifts mantra. And you beautifully alluded to that idea. Today, I am going to see what there is to see, to feel what there is to feel, and to know what there is to know. What does that mean? It means the opposite of what most of us do. Today, I'm not going to see anything that I don't want to, or anything that makes me uncomfortable, or perhaps confronts me. I'm definitely not going to feel things that I don't want to feel or that are unpleasant. And I don't want to know anything that's going to really disrupt things. And this is what you said, we're living in an unconscious world. The anti-soul shifts mantra is how most people live. Mm-hmm. Just the thought, in each moment, right now, I'm going to see what there is to see about the conversation I just had with somebody. Feel what there is to feel. Mm-hmm. And then knowing this comes. This I have gotten tens and tens of thousands of emails, posts, letters about just that it shifts people moment by moment. Because what it's doing is it's pulling you into your higher consciousness. It is the ultimate soul shift. It's, I am going to see what there is to see. Well, what else is there except seeing what there is to see? But saying I am going to see, you activate that part of our brain, our enlightenment that says, I am going to see now. And when there's light and you can see, then you can make a better choice, etc.
Right.
So you're absolutely right that if we're paying attention to, how we're vibrationally shifting from minute to minute. Mm-hmm. But that's the problem, that most people are walking around disconnected from what's happening on the inside, looking for outer response. And the truth is
projecting all the stuff that they're feeling on the inside.
Completely. And as I say, we see the world through the eyes of our issues. We interpret the world through the lens of our issues. We're all basic, most people, unless, the less enlightened we are, we're in a hallucination. We think people don't like us, we think we have to do this, we're afraid we have to perform, we're interpreting people's looks. It's really like a bunch of people on drugs wandering around, and in false realities. And in a relationship, for instance, intimate relationship, there's two people in their own hallucination, saying, well, you didn't call me, that must mean you're upset. There's so much of that going on. So, and that is how I started out, my spiritual path and teaching about that. But really, even right now, in the middle of all of that, there is knowingness, there is truth, and you don't have to go to India or fast for 1,000 years or give up gluten or whatever it is, because we're built for awakening. We're wired for awakening.
Well, I think that, particularly you and I, Stu's a little younger here, I think we have been the strangers in the strange land, out on the limb. I always call myself the drop that precedes the tidal wave of baby boomers. And, at the time when you were doing all that very avid seeking, it was needed to be done by a lot of us then.
That's right.
Right? Because we were really going through the forest first with the machetes, as I like to say, carving the path.
Absolutely.
And the young people that are here today, and I see some of them in the audience, they come in and they're just conscious, and it's just a matter of common sense. It's just a logical, linear, practical decision that they understand they're creating their reality and that their thoughts are important. So I think that we needed to do what we did in the early days in order to really get to where we are today, and having created the paths and the space for people to really just fall into it and just have it be as as easy as breathing. The knowing.
I would say that we did need to use our energetic machetes to cut through a lot of old thinking, but I would also say that to live and integrate, awakening consciousness has to be more than just the fact that you have so much available to you as a young person, or that there's so much literature or so many opportunities to study with people. Nonetheless, none of us can escape that work. None of us can escape that work.
For sure.
Because otherwise it can become an attitude. And being, awakened or loved, whatever you want to call it, isn't an attitude. It's not an attitude. It's a grounded state that nothing and no one can take away from you.
That's right.
And that really these days is the only stability we had. And my message is, it's attainable, it's creatable. We're actually creating it and choosing anyway. Why not figure out the mechanics for how we can actually make the right inner choices? It's, soul shifts are a series of inner shifts, inner perspective shifts from in each moment that just completely open up everything and reconnect us back again. It would be kind of like trying to put a plug in the dark and you can't find the socket, and then you suddenly get it in there. And when you get it in, the lights go on. So that's what teachers are for. You were mentioning cutting through the forest. I would say teachers stand at the bridge when people are ready to cross over to a new way of being, a new life, a new them. And we say, yes, you're at the right bridge. And yes, let me usher you forward. And honor that person's arrival, make sure they cross safely, wait for the next person.
So could you give us an example of a couple of soul shifts that you talk about in your book?
Well, I certainly
You
can.
have
Aren't they
46
fun?
of them.
I know
I
you
had to
said there
count
were
them.
46.
There's 46.
By the way, yes, and this is my own book with lots of marks and things, and because I read my
books
own,
like
my books come.
It's nice to know you're each home cooking here, because
But you
a lot of
see-
people read it and put it away.
But this, you see, and this is actually my public book with these. My other one is just full of things because
Fuller
my
than that?
books. Oh yeah, this is nothing, because my books come through me, not from me. So I myself, am amazed. I mean, I turn to the book all the time myself, to help me look at everything. But I'm just going to give you an example of, here's all the soul shifts at the back, for instance. Shift from trying to look good to cultivating vibrational credibility. This is a phrase I came up with. I love this phrase.
I love that phrase, too.
Vibrational credibility. Most of us want to impress. We want to look good. We want people to like what we do. We go into, whether it's a business meeting, could be a TV show, a date, and our natural ego, limited human ego, says, I want people to be happy with me. And then we're thinking, what can I do to make people happy with me? How can I be? What should I be thinking? What should I be saying? Vibrational credibility means that we are literally aligned with our truth, our most expanded self, and that what people are seeing or hearing on the outside is completely in alignment with how we're vibrating, so that we're not doing one thing and saying one thing, and where they're confident, we're talking about love and this and that, and yet we have intimacy issues, or we're talking about vision and compassion, but we have kind of vibrations in the background of judgment. It creates vibrational dissonance. Now, I'm not talking about the worst person in the world who's up and is giving a speech on love and is doing horrible things. I mean, everybody, all of us have places where we're not in alignment with ourselves. So vibrational credibility is something that you can't prepare for at the last minute. You can't suddenly say, oh my gosh, I got a offer from Google and I'm going to go in for this interview. I got to get my confidence up. It's too late. It's too late. Someone just introduced me to a man. I got to open up and get rid of my anger at my ex-husband. It's too late. What you're going to show up with is how you've been vibrating, how you've been living. Mm-hmm. So to cultivate vibrational credibility means that in each moment, you are seeing, feeling, and knowing, so that when people see you, they're feeling the vibration. I say we all have an emotional soundtrack, a vibrational soundtrack. I love this analogy. Just like the soundtrack in a film. So, you can see the words and going, don't leave me, but but there's strings playing, and you feel like crying. If the vibrational soundtrack or the real soundtrack in that film was funny music or scary music, that scene wouldn't work. You would say, why did they choose this music? They're on the Titanic, it should be emotional. But that's how a lot of us are living. We have our own emotional soundtrack of old fear or anger or resentment or whatever it is. And we're there going, I'm a loving person and I'm here to serve you, or yes, I believe in this company, or oh yes, I'm in love with you. But behind us is playing something that is very dissonant, really dissonant. People love this idea because they go, oh my God, it's true. I have like a horror film soundtrack playing, right. And there I am trying to go in and give a speech, and I'm there going, yes, and everybody, and we should motivate ourselves and our sales can get better. And behind it's like, it's like Jaws or something, and people feel it. Right? This is the key to successful speaking, as an example. And in my Soul Shift seminars, I teach people how to begin to look at what's the vibrational soundtrack that's running in the background. When it's in alignment, people just feel you fully. They feel they know you. They feel intimate with you. Mm-hmm. They don't feel like there's anything that's off. And it's not like anyone's going to say, I don't like your vibrational soundtrack. You're not getting the job. They'll say, he was nice, but I don't know, something just wasn't
right.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what I call being wobbly, where one part of us is very strong and the other part is wobbly. Most of us have a lot of wobbliness in some area. We're very, clear or focused spiritually, but emotionally we haven't quite gotten it up to speed, one or the other. So all 4 legs or 1,000 legs, steady and not just mostly okay. That's my level of commitment for myself and what I try to help people do.
Let's talk about relationship, because you've been a relationship coach, years or decades of experience in doing that. And what role does relationship have, or how can we, I don't want to say leverage in a management term, but how can we utilize our relationships, especially our most intimate ones, in our soul shifting and awakening process?
All relationships are just vibrational experiences that we're having with another person. When you can, that's one of the big soul shifts. Shift from thinking of your relationships as emotional to shift to seeing them as vibrational. This can blow people's mind when they really get this, because right now we're in a vibrational relationship. My planet is vibrating certain things, and I could be saying this or that, you could be saying this or that, but there's a vibration, hopefully one of harmony and respect and love that all of you are feeling. Relationships are just a constant interaction of my vibrational reality with yours. So bottom line is, if my planet, my home planet, isn't in a clear, harmonious space, it doesn't matter what I do, don't do, etc. I'm going to be bringing a dissonant vibration into that relationship. And the problems in relationships are vibrational. They start there. The Soul Shifts mantra is really what you can apply to your relationships too. I'm thinking of so many couples whose relationships were rocky when they met me. I don't teach relationship stuff anymore. I teach this because it's more profound. And just saying, I'm going to see what there is to see about how I'm behaving with you. I'm going to feel what there is to feel about what's happening. I'm going to know what there is to know. And all of a sudden you say, you know what? I'm punishing you today. I realize, because you didn't agree with what I said yesterday. And I just realized I'm just a little colder. Wow. And how does that feel? That doesn't feel good. Is that the highest choice I can make in this moment? No. Is there a more enlightened choice I can make? Yes. Do I want to make it? No. Well, no, wait a minute. And all of a sudden, instead of right and wrong, and this is one of the most important things I talk about, the Western dynamic, as you know, the Judeo-Christian dynamic, what's right and what's wrong. That's where a lot of us get stuck. What is aligning me to my highest? What's going to contract me and disconnect me? This helps people transcend shame, blame. I know you know what I'm talking about. Where we can, once we start seeing things about ourselves, get stuck in the judgment about it and the negativity about it. And instead I'm saying, what's expanding you? What thoughts contract you? When you make certain choices, does it uplift you? Does it pull you down? Not is it good or bad. Then we're bringing in judgment, and then we're bringing in separation right away. I have worked with so many people who have they're growing a lot, they're seeing a lot, and as I always say, the more you see, the more in shock you get when you start to really grow, because you're seeing things you didn't know were there. And that's a very delicate point for people, where they can say, you know what, it's too much. Maybe I just need to take a break from all this, and instead I'm going to just go to the gym, and I don't really need to see any more about myself, because the thought is I'm seeing things I don't like, and then I go into judgment. And then I start to feel that my meditation or my yoga class or my Soul Shifts book is not allowing me to feel good about myself. It's making me feel worse about myself. I don't want to know anything more about myself. But that's because of that good-bad paradigm. And this is one of the biggest soul shifts that I offer people, is to shift out of what's good and bad, and how is this affecting me or others vibrationally. This creates a tremendous sense of expansion and ease when working with yourself or working with somebody else.
Yeah. I was going to say, when you're talking about this, my mind started to go in terms of relationship. I mean, between all of us here, we're a veteran of a number of marriages. And when I hear you talk about vibrational matching in relationship, then it makes me wonder whether marriage itself may be an institution for many of us that may be an older paradigm that may not serve anymore, simply because this whole notion of death do us part, as we're just continuing to vibrate, may or may not be applicable.
Let me say this about that, and this is actually a great point. For some of you listening and watching now, who have gone through a lot of emotional shifts, changes, and different situations in your life, or any of us here, including myself. Old souls take very advanced earth classes. Old souls are in what I call spiritual graduate school. And, we all remember kindergarten. What did we do in kindergarten? Colored, took a nap, milk and cookies. It was so nice, no pressure. Not much happened. More in junior high, more in high school, more in graduate school. And when you're in spiritual graduate school, you have what I call a karmically eventful life. There's a lot.
It's like the Chinese curse, right? May you live in interesting times.
No, it's not a curse.
Okay.
We chose it. We chose, I want to go fast. I want to wake up. I want to learn. And the problem is a lot of us forget that we made that choice. But and this is something I can offer everyone watching, and in case maybe you, if we have been gone through a lot, you are not the events that have happened to you. You are the polishing that's happened from them. And many advanced souls decided to, instead of just having one relationship for 40 years, have a bunch of them because they wanted to get the lessons and move faster. I don't think marriage is possible or not possible. I just think for each of us, whether it's been that, whether it's been bankruptcy, whether it's been health issues, whether it's been addiction,
whatever.
There are a lot of souls who've said, let me learn humility, let me learn compassion, let me learn detachment, let me learn relinquishment, let me learn all of the advanced hard courses, Abandonment 101, Betrayal, 2000. We've all taken them. The question is, what's come out of them? I am an extremely polished diamond, and I've been put through the ringer. I chose it. It doesn't mean I always like it, but I chose it. And yes, there's people who have what I call a resting lifetime. They meet somebody at 18, they're married for 50 years, they go bowling, they have their Christmas, and their life is very uneventful, really, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I call it a resting lifetime. You see, I haven't had a resting lifetime. I don't think you've had a resting lifetime.
Not so much.
I know a lot of the audience, right, has not had a resting lifetime, and probably if you're watching, you haven't either. And again, we transcend good and bad, and we say, I am experiencing a lot, I call it spiritual velocity. I'm going fast, and there's going to be turmoil when things go fast. But you can go fast, stay safe, avoid the detours, and take shortcuts.
I think your book is probably one of the great little shortcuts for us. The whole thing about judgment is something that I'm working on myself a lot, and it's judging myself. That self-judgment, I don't know, I guess it's from programming in my childhood, where there are deep subconscious programs that come up. And I know that, as a vibrational being in physical form, that I am a God being. I'm connected, I'm one with God. So what is there to judge, really? So the judgment of others really comes from us really not being able to stop the judgment of self. So I know that's really where a lot of my work has come in. And I guess I'm just making the point, because I think that when we go in relationship, when we're in a relationship, that's the bridge to enlightenment. Wow. Because we're going to get buttons pushed that we can't even push ourselves. We have to bring in somebody else to push the button and then say, thank you very much for being a jerk in my life, and helping me see this
or
even
more cosmic. What if in another time we knew we had a very deep lesson to learn, and we made an agreement with an old beloved one and said, I never let go first. I get stubborn. I get afraid to be on my own. After 15 years, I want you to leave me, and I'm going to have to stand up and grow. And because of everything we experienced together, I will do it this time. Or I want, even more extreme, I want you to not be nice to me. And after 5 years, I will find my voice. Thank you. And I will only let it happen because it's you and somebody I've known. Now, I'm not saying that this is always the case, but there's some interesting, expansive ways to understand why things happen to us. And I have a phrase I help people shift with, which is, why did I choose this? What is happening to me? Why is this happening? As opposed to the sarcastic, why is this happening to me? What reason might I have had to sign up for this? These are all the things that shift us out. And you're talking about, self-judgment, not seeing who we really are, which again, we have to go beyond
the
just,
intellect. We have to go into the feeling
and
in
it
the
has
body.
to do with how, I teach this in my socials weekend, our brains get wired literally. So love gets wired with performance.
Right.
And
With
we're
approval, with
neurologically
performance.
programmed by the time we're 5 or 8 years old. So we have to reprogram by having the opposite experience. So right now, I'm going to tell you that I think you're wonderful. I think that you're a deep, beautiful, sincere seeker. And that no matter how much you're thinking that you're not perfect in moment by moment, you have a peaceful, serene soul that radiates way beyond anything that you can imagine.
Thank you.
And you can take that in and have a soul shift right now.
I am. I'm having a soul shift. And,
Aho.
and that is a segue. Our interview is coming to an end. 40 minutes. I can't believe it. It's 40 minutes. We didn't get to a lot of our questions, but it means you'll have to come again.
I would be honored to come again.
Thank you so much. Really, you're wonderful. A wonderful guest to interview. And we just barely scratched the scratch, as they say, what we could really get into today.
I'm really happy that you're helping me get soul shifts out there, because it's really not a book, it's a gateway. It's a vibrational experience that will recalibrate you with all kinds of amazing techniques we didn't get time to talk about. But
Well, you've given us all a vibrational experience today that truly is a unified, integrated field. And so we thank you.
I think we should look at this whole show as a soul shift. What do you think?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, this whole show is a soul shift for all of us. Great, thank you so much, Barbara.
You're welcome.
So now it's time to hear from Stu with Stu's Views, and I can't wait to hear what he's going to share with us today. Stu?
Here we go. So for this edition of Stu's Views, and I've been really thinking about this because, there is a little bit of, believe it or not, there actually is a little bit of perfectionist in me that wants to just nail it. And I just want to offer this incredible, deep sense of wisdom, this knowing that is going to help to wake everybody up, open their hearts, and live the life of their dreams. And so in this context with Barbara here and talking about this vibrational presence, I have exactly something that is the cure for the blahs, and something that I really hope you can take to heart, and hopefully you can even remember. And it goes like this. Blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. There is something inside of us that knows this, that knows this truth, that we are these vibrational beings. And it goes beyond any words we could possibly imagine. It goes beyond any marketing, beyond any phrase, beyond any magic, anything, other than we know that it's true within us. And we know, you're watching this program for a reason. Despite Allstate, State Farm, and everybody else, there are no accidents out there. This is pure moment-to-moment vibrational experience that you're here for. You know what you want in life. And we're all interconnected here. So we're connected by this blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's like the Charlie Brown's teacher, right? Wah, 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 wah. It's like all you're hearing, wah, 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 wah. And all you hear is vibrational noise. And it feels dissonant. And maybe some of them are running for president right now, and some of them are running different countries. And some of them you see on TV all the time, and they seem to get even more airtime than the people who, like Barbara or others, or even us, who are offering up another vibration that just feels so much more delicious, so much more delightful. And in prior programs, I've talked about VD, having VD, which is vibrational delight. And it's something that's highly contagious. And it's something that you can't contract, you can only expand, okay? And so that's really what we're offering up here with this program and with this Stu's Views, is this whole notion of blah, blah, blah. You've heard all the words before. You know all the words. You know all the wisdom. It's already inherent within you. It's already inherent within you. And just maybe in this moment, it's just simply enough just to ask yourself, how delightful can I feel? Or how grateful am I just simply to exist in this form, right here, right now? No matter how much craziness, no matter how much mishigas, as they would say in the old country, no matter how much we've all been through, and we've all been through a lot, we're all in the spiritual graduate school here for the most part, can we tap into a gratitude that despite it all, and despite all the blah, blah, blah we've gotten in life of how things are supposed to be, that we can tune in to what we know in our hearts to be true and connect to something that truly has created us all and may very well be living through all of us right here, right now. And I want a great shout out to my beloved out there who couldn't make it here tonight. Blah, blah, blah. Baby. And with that, it's time for a quantum quote and some other blah, blah, blah. Go get him, Patricia.
Okay, I'm gonna use words though. I'm not gonna do
Feel
blah.
free.
Okay, great. So as you can imagine, there were millions of quotes online on personal transformation and transformation. And as I researched, I found many that would have been very appropriate for this show. However, I did not choose a quote online. I actually chose a quote from Soul Shifts, from this remarkable new book from Dr. Barbara DeAngelis. And in fact, the book is just chock full of all this wonderful wisdom that I'm sure are going to go down as famous quotes in the future online. So the quote that I selected when I first read it kind of made me laugh, chuckle a little bit. But then I had to really ponder it as truth from my own experience, certainly. And here it is. The path of awakening is not a cosmic car wash. You don't get to sit back and be a passenger. You are essential in the process of your transformation. It's not just being exposed to wisdom and insight that matters. It's what you choose to do with it. So that is so true. And believe me, I have lived that to the hilt. So it's such a powerful statement because in the final analysis, we are the only ones that can be cause for a personal transformation. No one else is going to do it. No matter how much wisdom, no matter how much inspiration or information that we gather, that we garner, it's not going to do it, unless we really are willing to be in action. So today we talked a lot about vibration. Vibration being everything. Einstein says everything is energy. That's all there is to it. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. So everything science tells us is energy vibrating at a frequency that gives us density. So how do we make the right choices? It all really comes down to the word choice, making a choice in the moment. And how do we know we're making the right choice? Well, if we're a vibrational being, when we're making a choice that feels good, I think it's our way of being guided in the right direction. We feel good. When we make a choice where there's a feeling in the body that's not good, if we're having a negative thought or a fearful feeling, then we're making a choice around that, then we need to pause, we need to stop, and we need to think about whether or not we actually want to move forward with that choice. So it's really important for us to be conscious about what we're thinking and what we're speaking all the time. This show is about getting conscious. And the guests that Stu and I and our team bring to you every time are people that are experts in their field of living life consciously. So I'd like to invite you, the audience here today, and all of you that are watching today, I invite you to not just take the information that you hear, the inspiration, the wisdom and the information, but to actually make a choice around it. Right here in this very moment, make a choice about what you've heard today from our interview with Dr. Barbara DeAngelis. Make a choice that's going to move you in the direction of your path, on the path to awakening. So with that, I thank you very much for watching the show today, and we'll close with our very special close. And but Dr. Barb DeAngelis is right here with us. So until next time, get conscious now. If you are passionate about your message, if you want your book to be the best it can be, and if you want someone to do it for you with your collaboration every step of the way, then Ellen Reed is the one for you. Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kelly Brandenburg. I've been a stylist for the last 15 years. I'm a color specialist as well as I provide a wide variety of other services. You can find me at 19 Blue Salon in the heart of downtown. I'm happy to be a sponsor of Get Conscious Now.